Well, good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you to today's webinar session. My name is Jennifer Scherze. I'm a Senior Marketing Manager here at Kognito, and I'm joined, as you can see, by an esteemed panel of experts. They include Nadia Stamp from Kognito, Hailey Hardcastle, a student mental health advocate, and Dr. Glenn Albright, a co-founder and our Director of Research here at Kognito. They're all really excited to discuss lifelong communication skills, as well as how to have a conversation around mental health. Both of these things are really necessary to help educators and students thrive, both in and outside of the classroom. So let's go ahead and meet our presenters, and I'm going to have Nadia kick us off.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. We're so grateful for you to be joining us today. As Jen mentioned, my name is Nadia Stamp, and I am the lead product manager for our PK-12 vertical here at Kognito. I spent the first about decade of my career actually working in higher ed, student services, and student affairs before transitioning into product roles within education technology, which is where I've spent the last 10 years of my career. And we're so eager and excited to share our Kognito story with you today. I'll pass it on to Hailey.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Hailey Hardcastle. I am a youth mental health advocate. I'm a recent college graduate. I just graduated college yesterday, actually, from the University of Oregon with a degree in planning, public policy, and management. But why I'm here today is because I am a lifelong learner and experiencer of mental health challenges. I have been involved in advocacy for about 6 years, passing policies here in the state of Oregon, founding and working with multiple nonprofits, building peer mentor groups here in my community, and like I said, experiencing my own mental health journey. And the main thing that I believe in is the importance of these lifelong conversations about mental health, and I'm really excited to be here to continue building on that conversation with you today.
Hello, everybody. Glenn Albright here. As Jen mentioned, I am a co-founder and director of research at Kognito. I am also a clinical psychologist and professor of psychology at Baruch College. And if you haven't heard of Baruch, it's one of the senior colleges of the City University of New York. And it's there that I teach introduction to psychology classes, probably a class that you all took. So I'm up there on a stage getting people turned on to learning about themselves, psychologically speaking. And then I also teach our graduate students in our mental health counseling program a course in trauma, grief, and recovery. So I'm very, very happy to be with you today and look forward to sharing a whole bunch of interesting things.
Hi. So first, I'd like to share a little bit about myself with all of you before I get into the work that I've done in my connection to Kognito. My mental health journey begins at the very beginning. My mom was only 19 years old when she had me. We grew up together, just me and her, and I knew the meaning of adversity, the adversity of life, before I even entered kindergarten. When I did enter kindergarten, I was what my teachers always called a worrier, paired with a pleasure to have in class. I was really on top of it and really, really enjoyed school until about halfway through my kindergarten career. My teachers started to notice that things were a little bit off. Certain numbers, colors, foods were bothering me. I would refuse to touch them. I was picking at my nails, disengaged in class, whereas previously I loved class. I was worried about bathroom breaks, being alone with anyone, and just not really behaving like myself. This went on for a while, and like I said, my teachers noticed, the school counselors noticed, and luckily when they did pull me aside to have the conversation about what's going on, I had the skills to share with them what was happening at home. What was going on was I was being abused at home, but luckily I was able to communicate with the safe adults in my life because of the emotional skills that they had built up through school-based mental health programming. One of my fondest memories is my school counselor coming to our class, and she brought these little cutouts of, excuse me, she brought these little cutout red paper hearts, and she asked us to write sort of what we were feeling on them. And oh, my apologies. Like I said, I graduated college yesterday, so I was speaking all day, and my voice is almost gone. So she brought these red cutout paper hearts for us and had us write different words that we were feeling. And I found mine the other day, and it just said like bad, sad, like all of the children words that a child would identify. And kind of she told us to carry that around with us, and that's what we were carrying in our heart. And I thought that was a really age appropriate way of explaining emotions and feelings to, you know, a 6-year-old. So because I did activities like that, and because I felt safe with the adults in my life, when they asked me what was going on at home, I was comfortable sharing with them that I was being abused. Um, and because of that, I was able to get the help that I needed. I was able to access counseling in school because my family and we weren't able to afford counseling outside of school. Like I said, it was just me and my mom. We were pretty low income. And so school was really my safe place. That's where I got the therapy that I needed, the connection to safe adults, you know, food, shelter, everything that I needed was at school for me. And I feel really lucky that I went to a school district that had the resources to support me in building those lifelong emotional and communication skills. Next slide, please. So because my community was so vital in me rebuilding my mental health and ensuring that lasting well-being, I really threw myself into school. By the time I was in high school, I was over involved in every sport, every activity. I was back to being a pleasure to have in class. And I just really wanted to do the best that I could. Because I was so heavily engaged in school, I became somewhat of a student leader. And because of that, a lot of my peers were coming to me to ask for mental health advice. We had administration coming to the student government asking what to do about some number of suicides in my community. They were really just looking to the youth for answers. And so we felt really empowered to make a change. One of my most formative experiences in high school was one of my best friends coming to me and telling me that she was suicidal, and I did not know where to send her. You know, this was in the mid 2000s, and so mental health wasn't quite talked about as much as it is now. And just even in the past 5 years, the resources that we have for this have just exploded, and I'm so happy to see that. But you know, back then we didn't have anywhere to send them. We weren't sure how capable the school counseling center was, all of those sort of things. So me and a group of my peers, we got to work in really improving the mental health landscape here in Oregon. We passed a bill called House Bill 2191 that allows for students to take mental health days off of high school or K-12 school in the same way you would a physical health day. So your parents still have to call in, the school will record it, but they will write down mental health instead of doctor's appointment or physical health or anything like that. And the purpose of this was, one, to catch students who are taking too many mental health days before it's too late. As students, we realized our peers were skipping school, and you know, the teachers maybe just thought they were ditching, but we knew it's because they were struggling and they needed to be connected with somebody. And the second part of that was to equalize physical and mental health onto the same level field. Like I said, this was just a few years ago when people weren't really thinking about that interconnectedness yet. And the outcome of this was incredible. We were able to start a larger conversation about physical and mental health being interconnected, not only here in the state of Oregon, but it went national. And now this is a law in 11 states, and 9 states have it proposed at this time. And one of the coolest parts about this, I believe, is it created a lot of conversations, not only between peers. I get DMs every single day from youth all over the country sharing their mental health journey with me, but also between my peers and the adults in their lives. I've had people tell me that their child came forward and talked to them about their mental health because they saw this article, or vice versa. They wanted to ask their child what they thought about, you know, these mental health days. So again, it really just all gets back to having these conversations. We can start them, but how do we have them in the right ways? After we passed this law, I was able to give a TED Talk about this subject at TEDx Salem, and it is titled Why Students Should Have Mental Health Days. I, again, talked all about how do we have these conversations. I'm a big believer that we need to build mental health CPR sort of skills. We all are equipped to do CPR. We teach it in schools, workplaces, community functions. I learned CPR skills in 8th grade in my health class, but I didn't learn how to respond in a mental health crisis, although I was way more likely to encounter a mental health crisis as a young person. Next slide, please. So when I got to college, my mental health journey continued, but it shifted just a little bit. I was no longer, in that leadership position. I had just entered college, and I was really struggling with how to face real world challenges, outside of high school. And I was lucky enough to join a group called the Student Advisory Board for my counseling center. Next slide, please. And through joining that group, I was introduced to Kognito. And oh my gosh, this was what I had been looking for. As I said, it was really scary, almost more scary than having my own mental health challenges was having my peers come to me and not knowing how to respond to them, or having people, DM me or message me or email me from all over the country sharing their mental health challenges with me. I felt that I really needed to build the skills and how to respond to them correctly. So despite all of the mental health fields that I had existed in before this, Kognito really offered me something different. I was able to take it as many times as I wanted and then practice it in real life. And I originally took it as a requirement to join this counseling center board, but because I had such a great experience, we put together some programming to share it with the wider audience here at my university. And so every May Mental Health Month, we try to get Kognito out there in a different way. One way that we've done it in the past is we incentivize it, and we enter students into a drawing for a $20 gift card, and we give out about 50 to 100 of them to a place of their choice. But my personal favorite is just last year, we gave every student who took Kognito a free ice cream cone at our local ice cream place, as well as a sticker, and this is the best part, that says, "My door's always open." And I've seen them around campus on people's water bottles or laptops, so that way everyone else knows they're a safe person to talk to. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, I just graduated college yesterday. And now here I am reflecting on everything, all of the bits and pieces that came together to make this happen. And I think back, to the little girl, the little 6-year-old who was doing well in school, but didn't quite have the support to make it through. And I realized that early intervention is the reason why I am where I am now. Having those safe educators, teachers, counselors, everyone to talk to is what got me here. When I was involved in a lot of activism, I often talked to a lot of reporters, news producers, the community members that would reach out, and everybody likes to ask, how are you doing? Are you doing better now? I'm sure that you all know, working in the mental health field, everybody wants a solution. But what I think is really important, and what I want people to know, and for you to take away from this, is that I'm not necessarily better now. I'm the same person as I was when I was 6 years old, going through all of that, as I was in high school, dealing with everything. But life just fluctuates, mental health fluctuates, and I'm not better now, but I'm different because I have the tools now. I have tools like Kognito. I have the tools that the adults in my life have offered me. And because of that, I feel so much more prepared to take on whatever comes at me. Thank you.
Thank you, Hailey, so much for sharing your story with us. Next slide, please, Jen. Educators have on average 20 or more conversations with students every single day. Imagine being able to enhance those conversations, making them more effective and impactful, allowing more time for classroom instruction. Communication is a key part of our daily lives, from greeting students in the morning to classroom instruction to meeting with parents and colleagues. Having effective communication skills helps to build a foundation of trust, fostering stronger connections, healthier relationships and partnerships with key school and community members, and leads to an increase in positive student outcomes. Next slide, please. For more than 20 years, Kognito customers have said one of the features of our programs they find the most valuable is the ability to practice. Research has shown that deliberate practice in a situated environment tailored to the learner promotes engagement, retention, and transfer to our day-to-day lives. Through this practice, users are able to build their competence and confidence by reflecting and re-engaging. Kognito programs are designed to meet the learner where they are. Subject matter experts inform the design and development of the didactic content, conversations, and resources in our programs to ensure that learning goals and outcomes are delivered in a way that enhances learner engagement, reflection, and retention. Kognito incorporates the power of virtual humans, practice, and instructional content to maximize the learning, retention, and application of our programs. I'll turn it over to Dr. Glenn Albright, who will talk to us about the science behind Kognito's programs. Glenn, take it away.
Thanks a lot. I'd like to begin by not talking about the number of students who are experiencing depression, anxiety, or other type of disorders. They are well known. The statistics are very sobering. What I'd like to focus in on is what I feel is not adequately addressed in K-12, and that is the impact of adverse childhood experiences. So first of all, what are ACEs? So I'm just going to read this so I'm very clear. It's a 10-item questionnaire that you answer with a yes or a no. And these items revolve around: did a parent or other adult in the household swear at you, insult you, put you down, humiliate you, or made you feel afraid that you would be physically hurt or hit so hard it would leave a mark? There are also items that address sexual abuse, a household member being incarcerated and or a problem drinker, divorced, mentally ill, or attempted suicide. So these types of questions are answered that address the first 18 years of life. Next slide, please. And it is stunning to learn about the number of ACEs people experience. According to the CDC, 61% of the population has experienced at least one ACE, and 16%, that's almost a fifth, 4 or more ACEs. And these have consequences in school and later on in life. 30% experience 2 or more ACEs by the age 17. Next slide, please. So if a child experiences a lot of ACEs, like especially 4 or more, it can interfere with one's executive function, the ability to follow directions, to problem solve, our ability to retain information, to recall it, our ability to regulate our emotions, both at home and in the classroom, our ability to concentrate or pay attention. It contributes to learning disabilities and, of course, social behavioral problems. And it, not surprisingly, dramatically increases the risk of depression and anxiety and substance use. Next slide, please. And those with high ACEs, again, remind you, that's almost a fifth of the population, 16%, have an increased risk of suicide attempts, of chronic diseases. This always blows me away, that the fact that early childhood experiences increase your risk as an adult for cancer, hepatitis, COPD, heart and liver disease. It has physical and psychological consequences. And when you see that more than 50% of K-12 students with learning or behavioral problems have 4 or more ACEs, you begin to understand why they are struggling. And if there's any silver lining in this cloud, that some students compensate through overachievement. They do incredibly well at school, and some have developed a resiliency because of the relationships they have with other adults outside the home, much like Hailey was talking about, and her ability to be resilient and kind of counter the impact of ACEs. Next slide, please. Now, this is incredible, that over 50% of ACEs occur in the first 5 years of life. 30% in the first 2 years of life. So these are adverse childhood experiences that are occurring pre-verbally even, where a child doesn't even have an opportunity to understand, to be able to deal with. They are helpless. And next slide, please. When these ACEs happen, it's important to understand that the brain is molding to the environment in which that child is growing up and integrates the fact that they're in an unsafe environment. So the brain makes over 1 million neural connections or synapses per second in the first few years of life. It's wiring itself like crazy in order to enhance survival. And if it's growing up in an unsafe, untrustworthy, toxic environment, that's the reality for the brain. That's the reality for that toddler. This is the way life is. This is the blueprint. And it robs the child of an ability to be creative, their play behavior, imagination, and curiosity, because the brain is being dedicated for survival. So this type of toxic address begins to generalize over and rob them of their ability to remember, to process information, to recall that information. And students with social and behavioral problems, in the classroom are too often sent out of the classroom, which puts them further behind, and it doesn't address the underlying causes of the disruptive behaviors and the learning difficulties. So the problem is perpetuated, and the student is not getting the help they need. Next slide, please. So the Kognito simulations integrate various evidence-based communication tactics that train the learner how to effectively identify students that are struggling, how to approach them and talk to them in a way that they feel safe and can open up, and then if necessary, refer them to support services. So these evidence-based communication tactics are drawn from neuroscience and adult learning theory and applied game mechanics, and involve MI or motivational interviewing. This is when you learn to communicate with someone by just asking open-ended questions, as opposed to questions that can simply be answered with a yes or a no. Making affirmational statements like, hey, I'm really glad that you came in to talk to me. Or, that was really hard to reveal. Thanks a lot. Reflective listening, saying back what you heard. The student will feel that they've been understood. They know you're listening, they know you care, and then making a summarizing statement. So overall, this is what's going on. And by the way, it's not only these strategies, motivational interviewing, that are helpful in communicating with students, but also with peers, with partners, with your own children. They're universal. There's been hundreds of studies on the impact of MI. And then also the simulations involve implementing opportunities to emotionally regulate. Now, what that means is when you're having a conversation, not only understanding the emotions that the person you're talking to is experiencing, but also your own emotions. And when you begin to observe those and then act in a way that facilitates the conversation, that's mentalizing, where you are realizing that the student you're talking to has agency, they have their own set of feelings, their thoughts and emotions. And by combining MI, you're creating an environment where you are empathetic, or you're experiencing empathic accuracy. The difference between empathy and empathic accuracy: empathy is when you feel what the person is feeling. And then empathic accuracy or cognitive empathy is when you know what they're feeling, but you don't have to feel it yourself. So all of these, from emotional regulation down to empathic accuracy, actually have places within the brain that light up, that become active when you experience or practice them. And they've been shown to impact very positively communication. It's not surprising. Next slide, please. I love this slide because virtual humans are incredible to have a conversation with. First of all, when you and I begin to have a role play conversation with a virtual human, I mean, we just enjoy it. We begin to open up. We feel safe. We feel like we're not going to be judged. Therefore, it engages us more. And it decreases what we refer to as transference reaction. Notice the neutrality of how these virtual humans look. That neutrality decreases transference. Transference are the feelings that are invoked in us based on other figures in our life. Like if someone looks like a significant other or is speaking like a significant other, it has a tendency to activate certain thoughts and beliefs in us, which take us away from the learning. So the neutral appearance not only decreases transference reactions, by the way, but it also makes these virtual humans impactful cross-culturally. Our studies have shown that across ethnicities and culture, they are effective in bringing about change. And then one of the coolest things about virtual humans is it decreases social evaluative threat. This is the anxiety that you and I feel when we're in role-playing in a group or with an instructor. And it creates an anxiety that increases what we refer to cognitive load, which robs you of your ability to concentrate on what's being taught or the role play experience. So we have less anxiety. And they also address implicit bias. So the whole bunch of incredibly unique special advantages of role playing with virtual humans. Next slide, please. So one of the functions I have at Kognito is to run efficacy studies that demonstrate that they do what they're supposed to be doing. And all of our efficacy studies are based on Kirkpatrick's model of assessment. This comes out of industrial organizational psychology, where we have 4 levels. Level 1, satisfaction measures, which are pretty typical in evaluating the impact of any training. Then level 2, how did the training affect your knowledge and skills and attitudes? And we stay away from knowledge items in evaluating the training because knowledge does not predict changes in behavior. Attitudes do. So that these training sessions, did they increase your preparedness to have a conversation? Did it increase your confidence? Those attitudinal constructs predict behavior. And then level 3 is the impact of behavior itself, and level 4 is the impact on the overall institution, the school, the district, on the culture, on the mental health culture. Next slide, please. So there have been dozens of journal publications that demonstrate efficacy. And the data shows that these simulations significantly increase the learner's ability to recognize when a student is struggling, to be able to approach them and talk to them using evidence-based communication strategies that we talked about a while back. And that resulted in a significant increase in the number of students identified, talked to, and referred. That is really exciting. And then lastly, what I think is like really neat is that students who took the training are more likely to seek help themselves, because the training addresses stigma, it addresses biases, it addresses that it's okay to seek help and how to seek help. So if you're trained to help another student, then all of a sudden, if you're experiencing psychological distress, you know where to go. You know what to do to help yourself. That's pretty neat. Next slide, please. Oh, that's it for me. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Glenn. So how does Kognito work? Users interact with a fully animated virtual character through conversation by navigating through scenarios, selecting how you engage with that character. As the learner in each scenario, your goal is to create a safe and caring environment that supports children who may experience trauma or distress. Conversation practice provides various choices to engage the student, parent, or educator, depending on the program. Once a conversation selection is made, users receive instant feedback from their virtual coach and engagement meter, which measures the comfort level of the student or individual with whom you are conversing. The student response will change dependent on the engagement selection you provided. The undo option allows you to reflect and re-engage and understand how the changes in what you say impact the comfort level of the individual with whom you are communicating. Upon completion, you receive a comprehensive personalized performance summary that analyzes the choices you made and the overall impact of the conversation. Kognito products are developed to provide realistic scenarios that teachers, administrators, staff, parents, and caregivers, and students face on a regular basis. We involve subject matter experts throughout the design, development, and delivery process to ensure our programs not only provide accurate, research-backed information, but also provide realistic practice scenarios. Next slide, please. Equipping educators to recognize and respond to students impacted by trauma or distress helps reduce the negative health effects associated with ACEs, as Glenn spoke to previously. The goal of these efforts is to provide better opportunities for students to succeed in the short term and in the long term for life beyond graduation. Our recent survey found that 3 of 5 educators do not feel adequately prepared to teach students activities to manage their stress and emotions, or use communication strategies to help students feel safe, or talk with the student to motivate them to connect with support. Kognito programs provide a complete portfolio of role-play training that supports the foundation of teaching communication skills. Our portfolio of programs affords educators, staff, students, and caregivers the opportunity to practice critical conversations around mental health and well-being using the same skills and language, building their confidence and honing their communication skills, building trust, and ensuring that educators are prepared to face any challenge or situation in the classroom or school community. Next slide, please. Our comprehensive library incorporates conversation practice, discussion and facilitator guides, communication templates, and structured lesson plans to simplify and minimize the work end users must undertake to effectively implement the program within their school. Designed to build and reinforce a culture of trust and open communication, empowering the full community to share concerns and work together to connect students with appropriate support, programs are tailored to each audience to ensure the critical knowledge and skills are delivered in a way that meets the learner exactly where they are today. The ability to revisit each topic on demand allows learners to maximize their comprehension and confidence. Educators and staff can complete federally and state mandated requirements utilizing our comprehensive skill development and conversational approach. Research has shown that this approach is more effective in building competence and confidence, therefore allowing them to better support their colleagues and, most importantly, students. Our student library, providing peer-to-peer conversation scenarios, emphasizes the development of critical skills proven to support resiliency, growth, student engagement, school attendance, and academic outcomes. Studies have shown that when students feel connected, safe, and supported in their learning environment, they are less likely to be absent from school and are therefore better able to build and retain the information they learn. Our parent and community programs, most of which are available in Spanish, round out our comprehensive approach to developing the skills and confidence in key areas that promote safety, emotional wellness, relationship building, and trust. Next slide, please. For every dollar spent implementing social emotional learning programs, $11 is saved in resources that are not expended managing behavior problems and additional interventions for at-risk youth. Kognito programs amplify the efforts schools and districts implement through its scalable, on-demand delivery tailored to the individual needs of every learner. Our research-driven programs lead to significant changes in knowledge, skills, and positive behavior change. The community approach supports the entire school ecosystem, developing a foundation of trust through effective communication skills. Next slide, please. The data speaks for itself. In a recent study of educators and staff utilizing our Safe and Caring Schools program, 96% indicated that they felt the school culture would become more caring and supportive if they applied the skills taught in the program, while 95% felt school and classroom safety would improve, and 97% felt their role as a trusted adult and advisor to their students would be strengthened. Imagine that classroom, school, and district, one where students feel safe, connected, and supported, where educators have the skills and resources needed to be that safe and trusted adult, and where the school ecosystem is part of a comprehensive support structure focused on ensuring every student succeeds. I'll turn it over to Jen for our final few slides.
Thank you, Nadia. Thank you, Hailey. Thank you, Glenn. Just gonna switch to the last slide. So in addition to everything that has been covered by our presenters, why should you consider Kognito? I just want to leave you with a few things to think about. First, the practice-based learning that really puts a learner at the center of a real-life situation, coaching them along the way and using virtual humans, as Glenn discussed. The next would be our products are research-driven. We have published loads of journal articles that speak to the efficacy that schools and districts are seeing all across the country that impact knowledge, skills, and behavior in real time. Our programs are also scalable, allowing you to deploy this across many educators and many students simultaneously. And our programs also complement an existing solution if you already have something in place. And it also gives you the ability to track data real time. So our learning platform offers real-time usage, the ability for you to pull reports to see who has actually taken the software training, and allows you access to pre and post survey data so that you can see the changes as they are experienced by the user. And lastly would be our ease of implementation. We have a dedicated client success team, and when we onboard you with Kognito, you will have a dedicated client success manager who will work with you to make sure that the program is implemented and that we meet your needs. So I want to remind everyone, if you do have any questions, we do have time left in the presentation and would love to entertain any questions that you have. So please feel free to put those in the chat. I'm listed as Victoria Crawford, the organizer, so you can message me directly. But just wanted to let everyone know that for attending today, or for those who might have registered but weren't able to attend, we are offering trial access of the following products. They would be emotional and mental wellness for educators and staff, the friend-to-friend emotional and mental wellness product, as well as trauma-informed practices. We will be sending these demo links out tomorrow via email. Sign-in is not required, so you'll simply just launch the product and go right into the demo. So we really want you to be able to experience Kognito for yourself, but just keep in mind it is limited for 7 days. If you would rather set up and arrange a personalized consult or product demonstration with an account manager, you can simply visit the form on our website listed here. We also invite you to review all of the research articles and some of the journal publications that Glenn also mentioned earlier. We have a wide library, and that can also be found on our website on the research section. The presenters have graciously offered up their email addresses in case you do want to follow up with them separately, so you can find those here as well. So I'm just going to see if we've had any questions come in via chat. If not, okay. I know that we frequently get asked the question, I'm already using a solution in my district or in my school. How would I go ahead and also integrate Kognito into this training program, either for students or educators? Nadia, would you mind speaking to that?
Sure, thanks for the question, Jen. So we currently work with many districts who create their own in-house professional development, or they might be using another provider, while utilizing Kognito as a practice and interactive piece to help drive that truly meaningful behavior change that Glenn spoke to. We provide that scalable, on-demand training platform that allows users to fully engage in that practice-based scenario in a safe, non-judgmental environment, which really helps them to transfer those skills to those actual situations they might face. We do make that user experience seamless by integrating with various learning management systems and can provide lesson plans and discussion guides to complement and align with your current programs, providing that proactive approach to effectively prepare this entire school ecosystem to handle tough conversations.
Great. Thank you, Nadia. Glenn, we did have a question come in. What if I have an educator and I know that one of my students is experiencing trauma or has experienced trauma? What's a good way that I could start off that conversation with my student?
That's a great question. And I almost like for Hailey to chime in after I speak, because I think she'd have some great things to add. First of all, the student has to be comfortable with the fact that they're speaking to someone who's creating a safe space, that they trust, that they know is kind of like intuitively is the right person to go to. They want to listen. And then what I find myself encouraging is people to do is to start off with some small talk, if that's appropriate. And then, of course, coupled with, thanks for coming in. That's the affirmation with MI. I appreciate you coming to talk. And then describing a behavior that you might be concerned about. I noticed that you're falling asleep a lot, or I noticed that there's that you're speaking up a lot in class and interfering with other students. So can you tell me a little bit more about what's going on? So trying to create some open-ended questions where the student can begin to respond, and responding, students are really smart. They're going to be able to pick up what they're saying to you, how it's impacting you. So just again, being curious, creating that safe environment, offering the student respect, and allowing them to speak without correcting them, without judging them. Let them tell you the story, and then you can go ahead and make recommendations accordingly. Hailey, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for letting me chime in on this. I have two thoughts. First is to engage a student that's going through a mental health crisis, I'd say you need to be willing to be incredibly flexible. The student might not respond right away, or they might not tell you the whole story. So persevere and try again. I think one point of contact with a student going through a crisis is never enough. Ideally, this should be a continuous, ongoing relationship with the student to build yourself up as a safe adult for them. The other thought is that I'd like to reiterate that it's not enough to just tell a student how to respond or offer them a list of solutions. Ideally, you should help them in developing their own skills, asking those questions to them so that way they can develop the skills within themselves, find answers for themselves. And while this can be a more difficult and resource-intensive task, I think it's important because not only will it help them through the crisis that they're going through, but then they have the skills to help others later on as well.
Thanks, Hailey. I'd like to add one more thing, that when a child experiences trauma, or an adult for that matter, the language centers of the brain kind of shut down. There's a reduced blood flow. And so children, again, and adults, but speaking about children now, students, won't be able to talk in a coherent way all the time about what's going on at home. They won't be able to give you the narrative because the brain cognitively didn't encode it. They can remember sensations, they can remember smells, they can remember other things that are related to, am I safe or not? They can become hypervigilant of their environment because they want to be safe or ensure safety as much as possible. So you have to be very patient and with the student, and not not expect a lot of information, just give them an opportunity to be themselves and understand, where they're at, and then you can make the appropriate referral.
Thank you all for taking the time to answer those questions. That about wraps up our session today. I really want to extend a very warm thank you to Hailey for sharing her story, Nadia for being part of our conversation, and Glenn for really diving deep into the cognitive science behind learning. I think that this was an extremely beneficial session.